Your Apple device is obsolete. What's next? My name is Steve Smith. This is TQA Weekly, and today we're going to be talking about Apple's iOS 11 announcement and what it means for every single iOS user out there, especially those that have a 32-bit iPhone 5, 5C, or iPad 4. In the advent of iOS 11, we have found out that 64-bit applications and devices with 64-bit processors on the Apple market are the only ones going to be able to take advantage of iOS 11, as it won't be offered to anything lower than what already has a 64-bit processor. So for those wondering, devices that were sold from 2013 on that are certified 64-bit. So for those wondering, the biggest change between a 64-bit processor and a 32-bit processor, just so we understand, and it's the same rule for desktops and everything else, is that 32-bit processors can only handle about 4 gigs of RAM. I say about because it's a theoretical. Mathematically, we should be able to allot 4 gigs of RAM, and it never really comes out to that anyway. So let's consider that for a moment. Well, we'll finally get rid of devices that can only support 4 gigs of RAM, and that is it. And the question into why Apple is stopping all support for these devices is kind of like one that we shouldn't worry too much about. They basically consider their gadgets that they sell useful for about 3 years, after which they basically don't support them anymore, supposedly. However, the iPhone 5 was released in like 2012. That means it's been around for 5 years, and while Android is kind of guilty for almost immediately not supporting gadgets out of the box, at least Apple pushes their updates to each of their clients directly. Now, obviously, it's the service providers not providing the updates for the Android phones, but if Android's stance was to update the phones themselves remotely, not let service providers deal with it, we'd have a very much even playing field between the two. So what else is useful for the planned obsolescence of the iPhone 5, 5C, and iPad 4? Well, the ability to make it far easier for developers to make applications by being able to focus on only 64-bit applications that will actually operate on a 64-bit platform, with the possibility of having access to more than 4 gigs of RAM, and of course a smaller subset of devices, which makes it easier for applications to be far more stable, which is, by the way, one of the reasons why, even though it is expensive to develop for iOS, it's actually easier in the long run when we're talking about stability and all those kinds of stuff. Now, there are other reasons outside of Apple for why planned obsolescence is a necessity, and this has to do with wireless transmission and communication standards. The original iPhone is no longer supported on many networks out there, basically because the technology used in it is too old. Whether or not you're a fan of Android or Apple or anything else, once the wireless antenna inside your phone is no longer supported by any cell carrier, your phone is obsolete, and that is, sorry, but the epic truth. Now, there are things that you can do with these gadgets after they have been completely made obsolete. Basically, you can make them into an MP3 player, but if you are not one of those that wants to make your gadget an MP3 player to go out running or whatever, then consider recycling the gadget, because here's something else that's interesting about the planned obsolescence of devices, because we know it's a cash grab and eventually they're going to force us to get off of these. The thing is many of these older gadgets are made of the same stuff that the newer gadgets are going to be made of. And these are rare materials that make it possible for us to have touch screens and many of the different kinds of minuscule technology inside. So if you are not going to be using your device for anything else that's useful and it's just going to collect dust in the drawer anyway, consider recycling the gadget. It's basically had a long enough life, and it could be reused in a different, much better gadget to begin with, so we can save the planet as well as also maybe cut costs somewhere on the raw materials and what it means for many of these people that work in those kinds of places. I hope you liked this episode, but if you didn't, dislike this episode, like it if you did it, share with those that you think can benefit from this, and don't forget to subscribe. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions for topics, email me at ask@tqaweekly.com or go to my website, tqaweekly.com, for everything else. And if you want to make this show better, go to patreon.com/tqaweekly and become a patron today. Patrons get these episodes 24 hours in advance of everyone else. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.